This week, you'll be writing the experimental section for the laboratory you completed. Remember that this section describes exactly the procedure that you followed to complete the experiment. What you write in this section should be able to be easily repeated by someone else from your lab. That is to say, it's reproducible. This section should be the easiest to write, especially if you keep good notes of what you did in your laboratory notebook. So what kind of things do you need to be writing down in your lab notebook? Well, the amounts of reagents used, what type of glassware was used, reaction conditions like temperature, was the reaction stirred, how long did the reaction continue, was there a color change or change of state, what method was used to isolate the product, and how was the product characterized. Making note of these things during the experiment will greatly help you when writing the lab report. This section should be written in past tense and using a passive voice. Past tense is easy enough. The reaction mixture was stirred. The reagents were added. But what does passive voice look like? Well, let's say that you were performing an experiment that required a reaction to reflux. Before you can continue with the procedure, the reaction mixture needs to cool. How would you write that in the lab report? Would you write that as the reaction mixture was cooled to room temperature, or would you write it as the reaction mixture was allowed to cool to room temperature? If you pick the second choice, you're right. As scientists, there aren't many things that we actually do to an experiment. We simply allow them to occur. So how do you need to report the amount of reagents used? Well, that depends on what state of matter the reagent is. Solids that are used should be reported using the mass, with the number of moles used in parentheses. Liquids should be reported using the volume, with the mass and number of moles in parentheses. Most importantly, remember this section is to explain what you and your group did to complete the experiment. Don't just use the procedure from the laboratory manual. If the manual calls for using 0.5 grams of a reagent and your group used 0.489 grams, that's okay. Write down what you used.